Hello and welcome to the 5 Minute Film Club, and welcome to Friday the 13th, Part 3. It's not in 3D, otherwise this would be touching your eyes. Friday the 13th Part... hang on a minute. Friday the 13th Part 3 was released in 1982 and, like Part 2, was directed by Steve Miner. We start off the film with a recap from the end of Part 2, which saw Jason being left for dead in his shack in the woods. However, he's not dead, and merely just injured, and so heads to a local store to get fitted out in some new togs, and of course dispatches the owners in a particularly ghoulish fashion. Any opportunity in this film to be a little bit 3D, I mean, they spent a lot of money on all sorts of the aspects of this production. They had a special house built to do 3D. Any moment where somebody can throw something at the camera, they will, and they do.
This is all the exercise I need.
The film came out during the early 80s trend for a new type of 3D filmmaking that provided higher quality than the 50s 3D that saw things like The Creature from the Black Lagoon released. It was, as 3D always is, a way to try and get audiences into cinemas. However, this form of 3D required investment from cinemas to have a special silver screen added in order to project it properly. The 1980s 3D boom didn't last long and had all but disappeared by the end of the decade. Anyway, Part 3 sees a new gang of teenagers arriving at Camp Crystal Lake, and takes place, excitingly, the morning after Friday the 13th Part 2. The new group of teens are Debbie and Andy, Shelley, Chuck, Chili, and our final girl, Chris Higgins, played by Dana Kimmel, arriving at her old family home in Camp Crystal Lake for a weekend of partying. Chris has got some bad memories of this place, as once, a couple of years ago, she was assaulted by a deformed man in the woods. Of course it was Jason, and she has now returned to confront her fears. I've always had a huge soft spot for Friday the 13th Part 3, and I think that's because I probably saw this one on TV before I actually saw the original Friday the 13th. I just love the larger-than-life characters and also the kind of zeitgeisty script and, ideas that are flying about in this film. Just watching it again, I was thinking, you've got like these... I mean, none of the actors feel particularly... or the characters feel particularly real. But that's the Friday the 13th for you. Anyway, you've got this group of bikers that really don't feel like bikers, and all the language that they use, chains around their neck, everything is so big and stereotypical. I mean, you've got the element of drugs...
Heavy shit.
And teenage pregnancy, and then also this sexual assault plotline that feels incredibly strange. And then, of course, you've got this wacky 1980s disco soundtrack by Harry Manfredini, and it's so weird and really disconnected from the rest of the film. It's just another attempt at the studios to make this film saleable. Let's try and release a single from it. But aside from all of that, this film is most remembered for being the film that introduces Jason to his famous hockey mask. And the second he puts that on, he becomes 1,000 times cooler in my book. His reveal in the mask and his first kill wearing that mask as he shoots the harpoon gun towards the screen and then just casually throws it away and swaggers off. He's more like Dirty Harry in that moment than any like serial killer that we've seen in these films. He's playing to the audience in this one. This is the time that Jason became the horror icon. This moment in film history. This is Jason becoming the iconic killer that will be on t-shirts and all sorts for the next 40 years. The film, as a whole, is rather formulaic. It feels exactly like Friday the 13th Part 2, and that's not surprising because we have Steve Miner back in the directing chair. He does some interesting things. He loves a crane shot. Steve Miner loves a crane shot. When I talk about Halloween H2O, I will remind you about his crane shots because there's quite a few in that film. But, the story is fun enough. The kills are a lot more fun than they were in Part 2 and Part 1, and then you have Richard Brooker as Jason, and I think that's the moment that Jason becomes his own character. He was never meant to be the star of these films, And this is where he becomes that star. And I think if you watch Kane Hodder, who would take over the role, and most famously played it the most times, he owes a lot, I think, to Richard Brooker's performance in Part 3. Anyway, Friday the 13th Part 3 is fun. That's the best I can say about it. The 3D, which I've only seen in the red and blue version, I haven't seen the Shout Factory actual 3D, the clear 3D version, newest form of 3D version. I'm trying to think of how else to say it. So I can't comment about that version of it. I would like to see it because, yeah, it's got some fun kills. Anyway, please let me know your thoughts about Friday the 13th Part 3 in the comments down below. And next time I join Friday the 13th for the next Friday the 13th, it's going to be the last one. It's called The Final Chapter. So, yeah, they didn't make any more. So, until then, thank you very much. Goodbye.